Hi, everyone. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Good. Did you guys have a good Easter weekend?
Yeah.
Did yeah.
Anybody do anything really fun? No?
Moderately.
What was that?
One thing I did was make deviled eggs.
Oh, nice. All right. We'll give just another minute. It looks like we've got a few people coming in right now, so. Well, that's awesome, Jack. You went to the Grand Canyon. That sounds like a lot of fun. Was it pretty busy? Yeah, I think our tourism industry is starting to come back with a vengeance. I don't know if you guys are feeling it as much as we are. Being in Flagstaff, I know most of you are in Flagstaff. So if you, I don't know if you're feeling it there as much as we're feeling it here, but in Page, we are getting slammed with visitors. It's pretty crazy.
I had a motocross race this weekend.
Oh, did you? How was that?
My 450 class, 450 open, I placed third overall. In my 450C class, which is novice, I placed eighth overall. It was weird. So my open class, I had like great starts, but with the novice class, I had bad starts. It was weird.
Where was the motocross? Where was it at?
It was in Moriarty, New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and there's one. I have a cargo trailer, and there was one long haul up that way, but it was all right.
Yeah, for sure. So Rihanna, the water level is just low. We haven't had a lot of runoff yet, filling up the lake, and we were told that we are pretty well under anything that we're going to get a good water level this year. So it's going to be the same. They're probably, I don't know if they're planning on dredging between Castle Rock so that you can get to Warm Creek without going all the way around. But I don't know how well you know the lake, but if you know what I'm talking about, I don't know if they're going to dredge or not. And so we'll have to see. That's how low it is.
Yeah, that's what I heard, that it was pretty low, that they were thinking about closing the ramps if it got a little bit lower. So there was a bunch of people trying to get their boats up there.
Yeah, so they'll close the Antelope Canyon ramp because that one, when it gets too low, that one's completely out of the water. But I don't think that they would close State Line or the Waweep one. I don't think they would close those. I've never seen them close them, so I think they'd be okay. But you never know. And then there's always, if you go to Lone Rock Beach or whatever, you can launch from there. So, but it is getting crazy there too. There's quite a bit of a drop off at the edge of the water now that wasn't there before. So,
Jeez.
Crazy. Okay, well, I think we have a pretty good representation of the class here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I do need to tell you guys, first of all, that if you haven't noticed, I'm sure you have, in Canvas, they have put in the class evaluation or whatever they're called. What do they actually call them? they call them
It's
the
course
student.
evaluation.
What was that?
I think it's just course evaluations. I don't think it's
Okay.
class.
Okay, so student opinion survey, I guess is what it is actually. And then I don't know, is the class evaluation or course evaluation thing on there too?
Oh, that's just the notification I got. I just thought that's what it was referencing, but I guess it had a fancy name, I guess.
Yeah,
Or
so I think the student opinion survey is actually another survey that they're doing. So the college is doing a bunch of surveys right now, just trying to gather information to help make some pretty significant decisions. So any surveys that you see that come out, you know, we would greatly appreciate it if you would participate in those, just to kind of give us a little more information about how things are going and, you know, what we can do to make everything better. So, and then I don't know, I thought it was the course evaluation, but I guess that's not. So I don't know if the course evaluation has come out too and I just missed it or what, but that'll probably be closer to the end of the quarter, I guess, or end of the class. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's talk about let's talk about our fun stuff that we have to cover today. We're almost to the end, just so you guys know. I don't know if you're getting a little overwhelmed by all of this or not, but now we're getting into the pieces that will make a more sense from a standpoint of it's gonna resonate a little bit more with a personal situation than I think the other stuff did possibly. We'll see. But anyway, it's more getting into more like worker stuff, and which we all work, right? All or most of us do. So so we all have worked or will work or do work or whatever. And so that kind of gets a little more into a personal type of a situation. Chapter 33 starts off talking about antitrust law and unfair trade practices. So let me ask you guys, how many of you, show of hands, like to play games? I'm talking like board games and stuff. Okay, couple. All right, awesome. So I love to play games, but are you the type that has to always win? I'm competitive. I want to win. In fact, there's one board game that I play that my family won't play with me because for some reason it's just luck. It really is just luck. But and I know my family, so strategy, you know, a little strategy in there just because I know my family, but I always win at it, and so they won't play with me anymore. So but do you ever cheat to win? No, I don't. But you know what? I know a lot of families that have that I'm going to do whatever it takes to win kind of thing. And I'll be sneaky and, you know, put the card under the table or whatever. But and there's people out there that do that, and okay, but businesses have competitions too. They play games just like games, you know, board games, but not quite, in a little bit of a bigger fashion. They are in competition with all the other businesses or that sell the same products and services that they do. And it's important to keep that competition fair. So we don't want to make sure that one business is doing something that's hurting another business or cheating, making that business look less desirable. And that's what this chapter is pretty much talking about, is what kinds of things are allowed and what kinds of things are not allowed. So the enforcement of this type of thing is enacted by the federal antitrust statutes. And there's several of them in here. There's the Sherman Act, the Clayton Act, the Federal Trade Commission Act or FTC Act, and the Robinson-Patman Act. And so we'll talk a little bit about these. So under the Sherman Act, there's two types of trade, horizontal and vertical, that violate Section 1. Horizontal restraints of trade are those that take place between two or more parties that are on the same level of distribution. So they have to be, this would be like looking at McDonald's and Burger King. You know, they're on a similar level of distribution, and they have similar products, they have similar geographic locations, they apply to the similar customer base. Although it's like Coke and Pepsi, a lot of people are like, oh, I'll only eat at McDonald's, or oh, I'll only eat at Burger King, you know, and then others are just like, whatever. So in this case, these kind of businesses may use price fixing or division of markets or boycotts or other types of horizontal agreements. Vertical restraints of trades are those that take place between two or more parties who are on different levels of distribution, and they may use resale price maintenance or a unilateral refusal to deal. So this when they're talking about this, what they're talking about in a lot of ways is the if I go to this supplier to get this supply, and that supply, and I say, I want you to be exclusive with me, you can't go to any of my competition, and this happens a lot, that's kind of what they're talking about. But if they're doing it in a malicious way, then that's where it gets a little crazy.
Is that like real estate?
So this is more product service based, but yeah, real estate would fall under it somewhat. Real estate is really, it's governed by its own set of rules, like we've talked about in the past, and the agency that is responsible for it is different from this, but yes, similar. I mean, there's situations where that happens. You know, I only want to deal with this builder says I only want to deal with this company. I don't want to deal with any other companies or whatever. And then it gets a little crazy. Let me just make sure I've got everybody. Did we lose somebody, or did I count wrong?
I came in a little late, which might be throwing off your account. But
I got you on there, but I think I lost someone because I'm off by one. All right, well, we'll keep going. Okay, so basically, two companies get together and they figure out how they're going to muscle out someone else. They may fix the price at a lower price than the other business can handle. So maybe their supplier can't supply that at a price that makes sense. So they're selling their popcorn at $1, and these other companies come in and they're like, oh, well, we can do it for 50 cents, whatever. So that kind of thing. And then, you know, obviously no one wants the popcorn from this business because they can get it from the other one. I guess I'm hungry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm like McDonald's, Burger King, popcorn, whatever, you know, so this will be great. This class will be awesome because we'll have all kinds of fun stuff going on. But so competition is competition. And if you're reasonable about it and you proceed in a lawful way, then you won't have anything to worry about. Just like when you play games and you're like, hey, this is funny, I'm gonna cheat, but it's, you know, it's not that big of a deal because the whole family does it or whatever. Anyway, so they're doing it in a way that's acceptable in that situation. But if you start playing dirty as a business and you're, you know, undercutting people, you're undermining them, you're putting out false information about them, those kinds of things, it's going to get really ugly for your business. So the Sherman Act, Section 2 of the Sherman Act deals with monopolization. How many of you know what Monopoly is? And at this time, I'm not talking about the board game.
It's like when you're the only person in a certain market, or like the only company just dominating one whole area. So like if every hotel was like a Hilton hotel. that'd be-
Perfect. Yeah. So a business who has a monopoly has the power to control the prices and exclude any competition in the market. There are 3 elements to consider when determining if someone is in violation of Section 2 of the Sherman Act. The businesses must possess monopoly power in the relevant market and has engaged in a willful act of monopolization to acquire or maintain that power. So that's what they're going to look at to see if you're operating as a monopoly. The relevant product or service market occurs when the opposing business has reasonably interchangeable products and services. So it's got to be pretty much across the board. If it's not something that you could go in and get something of the same value from that company, then that's not considered a relevant product, or something that's in the similar type of product.
Isn't there like a law where if you are a monopoly, you can't like sabotage companies that are like on the come up or something?
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little more about that. So
Like
people
what
can
Facebook's
go,
doing? Like, isn't Facebook getting sued right now?
most
sure.
likely, because I think Facebook is generally getting sued. They're almost always in a lawsuit.
Yeah, but I think they're losing a lawsuit right now because they sabotaged like an up and coming like social media platform. And like somehow, I don't know how they did it, but it's like proven that they did. And like they also bought out like Twitter, Instagram, and all that stuff. So they're getting sued for all that, I believe.
For becoming a monopoly. So, and Facebook's situation is a lot different from what we're dealing with. For one, social media is relatively new to our laws and regulations. So there's a lot of things that Facebook is actually responsible, a lot of laws and stuff that Facebook is actually responsible for establishing, because they never really had that kind of thing going on before. And so they're setting precedents. So how they decide these lawsuits against Facebook is setting a precedence for anything that happens that's similar that goes forward. So, but I do know that Facebook is constantly being sued, and there are situations where they're being sued for whatever, and sometimes they win, sometimes they don't. But it is a difficult situation because a lot of times the rules have not been established for them. And then as far as there's a lot of things about Facebook too, because it's not necessarily a product-based business. It's a social-based business. So there's not really, I mean, the people that market on Facebook, that's where they're getting their revenue from. So they're not really getting revenue from members. So it's a really difficult situation because control is rough. Plus it's new. And the internet's new and social media is new in the grand scheme of things. It's all new. I know it doesn't probably feel like that because it's been around for a little while, but it's still being established, and government and laws and regulations, they take time. So, so yeah, well, and we'll talk a little bit about the monopolization situations and how that works and what's allowed and what's not. So, there are times when a business does not mean to have a monopoly, and that's kind of a situation that possibly could be an argument for Facebook. They didn't mean to do it, but they were helping. I don't know if this is true or not, but they were helping these other social media platforms that were not doing as well or whatever. I don't know, but so it happens often in a small town. So in a small town, we get a lot of monopolies. In Page, we could have a lot of monopolies here because we're such a small town. But for a business to exist, they need to be able to make a profit. And if they can't do that, and they can't compete, if there's not enough people to keep 2 businesses alive, then that one business is going to control the market, right? So that's an example of them doing it without meaning to be. A lot of utility companies, like in Page, we have one utility company. I don't know how many you have in Flagstaff or any of that, but utility companies are generally monopolies. They're the only ones that service that area. Think about all the equipment and all of the infrastructure that they have to put in place to actually run that company. It doesn't make sense for there to be more than one in a lot of places. So most of the time you don't get more than one. We in Page, we're finally getting more than one cellular carrier. We had Verizon for the longest time, and that was it. So Rihanna, you said you come and boat here. You probably know that if you don't have Verizon, your phone does not work. And T-Mobile is starting to come in. And then I heard something about, is it Sprint or AT&T? I know they combined at one point in time. But one of those is coming in. Somebody like that is coming in as well. So we're starting to actually get more phone companies here, which are mobile companies here, which is nice. But that is a real thing here. And internet service providers, those kinds of things, we're finally getting some competition where we didn't have that before. We were too small and they couldn't sustain more than one. So Section 7 of the Clayton Act deals with mergers. We discussed mergers a little bit in last week, but if a merge is enacted to stifle competition, it violates the Clayton Act. So if I'm going to merge with this company so that I can be bigger and muscle you out, then I'm going to be in violation of that act. To decide if it's in violation, there are 3 elements that would be considered. And that would be the line of commerce, which has to have relevant product or service market defined in order to detect if it violates it or not. The section of the country, which involves defining the geographical market. Does this sound familiar? And probably probability of substantial lessening of the competition. So if it's going to substantially lessen the competition, so in Page, this would happen quite a bit. You know, if one company bought out another, most likely there's not going to be anybody that can compete with that, because that's going to take up most of the local population in customers, most likely. There are a couple of reasons that companies may merge without a violation, and that's if they are a business that's failing and the merge is saving them, or if the 2 businesses that are merging are considered small businesses and the merge gives them the power to compete with larger businesses. So in other words, they're moving out of that competitive market and into another competitive market, a different one. Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act, FTC Act, was developed to give the FTC the authority to enact the FTC Act. It provides additional details and fills in the gaps of the antitrust acts. Let's see here. Let's take a look at the case 33.1. In my book, it's on page 626. This is American Needle Inc. versus the National Football League. Is that 294? 594. 594. Thank you. Okay, so it's on page 594 for most of you, or 626 if you're in my book. And go ahead and I'm going to give a few minutes for everyone to read through it, and then we'll talk about it.
Which one are we reading through?
It's case 33.1. All right, what do you guys think of that one? So it's kind of confusing, right? And then decisions were made all over the place too. So the NFL teams got together and they made the NFLP, which is the National Football League properties. And then they had American Needle doing their needlework. And then they decided to go with a different company. So American Needle sued them. And American Needle said that it was not only going to sue the NFLP, but also each of the NFL teams and the NFL. So this lawsuit is one of those where it's like, okay, wait a minute, we need to look at this and narrow it down, because not all of these people are at a fault. So they were determining who is actually at fault and who's a separate entity and who's not. So the issue in this case was, are the NFL, the NFL teams, and the NFLP separate legal entities capable of engaging in a contract, combination, or conspiracy as defined by Section 1 of the Sherman Act? And the court said Section 1 applies only to concerted action that restrains trade. Directly relevant to this case, the teams compete in the markets for intellectual property. To affirm marketing hats, the Saints and the Colts are two potentially competing suppliers of valuable trademarks. Decisions by the NFL teams to license their separately owned trademarks collectively and only one vendor are decisions that deprive the marketplace of independent centers of decision-making, and therefore by the NFLP regarding the teams separately, or for that reason, decisions by the NFLPs regarding the teams separately owned intellectual property constitute concerted action. So they're saying yes, but then the US Supreme Court held it that the NFL, the individual teams, and then NFLP were separate entities capable of engaging in concerted activity in violation of Section 1 of the Sherman Act. And the Supreme Court remanded the case for further proceedings. So in this case, they're saying that, yes, these are separate legal entities that are coming together and they're trying to muscle out the competition, basically. So do you think that the defendants conduct violated Section 1 of the Sherman Act? Because they're saying that the NFLP was the fact that the NFLP granted non-exclusive licenses was a business decision made by the NFLP and the NFLP only. And so now the courts are saying that these are all separate entities and they're coming together and they're doing a combination contract that's actually detrimental to the marketplace, to the other vendors. So do you think there was any unethical conduct in this case? I mean, yeah, they were getting together and doing this, but I don't know for sure that they really were trying to muscle anyone out necessarily. I think they were trying to secure, possibly, I don't know, but possibly trying to secure a better deal. Because a lot of times, if you go exclusively with a company, they will give you a better deal than if you're going, a piece over here and a piece over there and a piece over there. Because when you get up to 500 pieces, you're going to get a lot cheaper of a price than if you have one piece. So I think that might have been what the intent was, and it just kind of got a little bit out of control. Let's see here. Okay.
So basically the NFL created its own company to do like the logos and stuff for them and basically cut the needle company out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that basically what happened?
So, well, they created the National Football League properties, and that company was actually just marketing the caps, jerseys, and other sports memorabilia of all the teams. So basically, instead of having one team selling all of their memorabilia to this place and one selling to this place, they brought it together and they did one that just sells all the team stuff. And then they marketed, or they sent out for vendors for making that stuff. So making the shirts, making the hats, making all that stuff. And one of the vendors was American Needle. So there was another vendor, Reebok, and that's the one that they went exclusively with. And they gave them a 10-year license to manufacture and sell the trademark caps. And these caps were being done by American Needle prior to that. And so they're seeing it as you're muscling us out, where in a business world, it may not have been meant that way. It may have. Maybe someone didn't like someone and they did mean to do that. They're like, oh, let's go with an exclusive license and then we don't have to worry about this person anymore. You know, I don't know. But that's what they're talking about when they're talking about, you know, price fixing and going specifically with another company maliciously, as opposed to doing it for the benefit of the company. So that's what they're trying to determine. And they're trying to determine if it's okay to sell to, if it constitutes a concerted action. So are more than one companies getting together and going against another company? Or is it just that the one company has done the business decision, they've made a business decision and it didn't mean anything to anyone else, kind of thing. So that's what they're trying to find here. And they were able to find that the NFL, the NFL teams, and the NFLP are all separate entities. So because they are, it's a concerted action. This decision was a concerted action as opposed to a business decision. So they see it as muscling out the competition kind of thing. So in chapter 34, we start getting into consumer safety and environmental protection. So this is where I'm talking about that we're getting into more of that stuff that kind of resonates. We talked a little bit about the regulations in the United States and how it differs from other countries when we were talking about other places that we've been and other food places that we've eaten, other McDonald's, other Denny's, other, you know, big chains that are out in the, you know, beyond the United States, and how their food differs and what people use in different foods. Like there's different regulations in those countries, or no regulations at all in some countries on what is in that food. And the United States does have a lot of regulations that they put out to keep us safe, to keep consumers safe. And we know this happens because we hear all the time about recalls or, you know, whatever it might be. The United States has consumer protection laws to make sure that all products are sold, all products that are sold are safe, and that the businesses are conducting a fair business. So recalls happen a lot. I mean, I've heard of them a lot of food, a lot of vehicles. I've had my vehicle recalled, like, I don't even know how many times.
Zillion.
Yeah, child toys. I remember for quite a while when they were first coming out with like the Happy Meals, where they give the little toy in it, or I shouldn't say just Happy Meals, but the children's meals at these fast food restaurants, they'd have those toys in them. And for the first little while, those things were getting recalled like crazy because they were a choking hazard or they were whatever. And then they started putting them in the little plastic bags. It's been a while since I've seen these, but put them in the little plastic bags that say choking hazard. So you have to unwrap the plastic. That's not good. And then it's a choking hazard. So you can't give it to this kid. You can only give it to this kid. And then they started doing like, well, if your child is under this age, there's a different toy than this age and all this crazy stuff. So That's a huge one. Child toys are a huge one, and not just child toys either. Like I've had recalls on car seats and baby furniture and all that stuff. I had a lot of those kinds of recalls, but I hear all the time about recalls on lettuce and meats and produce. I should say produce, not lettuce. So produce and meats and stuff like that, some people are eating and they're getting sick because it went through, but it snuck through somehow and got into our retail outlets, and we were able to buy it, but it wasn't actually safe. But they catch up pretty quick, I have to say. And the US Department of Agriculture is part of that process. They regulate the safety of meat, poultry, and other food products. The Food and Drug Administration is also part of that process. They regulate the safety of food, drugs, cosmetics, and medicinal devices. And these two agencies work together to ensure that the consumer is getting safe food. The FDA requires unadulterated foods and proper labeling. And when I mean proper labeling, they're pretty crazy about their labeling. And nowadays, anything that you find that you grab, let's see, you'll see. Let's see if you can see it without. So I have my water bottle here, and you can see all this information right here. It's all required to be on there. It has to say that this cap is a small part and it's a choking hazard for kids. It has to say that because someone probably choked on it and they had to put it on the bottle. They have to talk about, this is a bottle of water, Arrowhead water. So they have to talk about the fact that it was bottled at this place and all this information. And if you have any issues, you have to call this number, or you can mail something or whatever. And then it's got the how many ounces this is, that it's a plastic bottle, those kinds of things. So there's quite a bit of information just on this little bottle. Then if you pick up other things, like I'm trying to see what I have in my room here, but you pick up other things and they have other types of situations. I wish I had like a bag of chips or something, but nutritional information is required. Drugs must have labels that say if you can operate machinery or not, when you're on them, what kind of side effects there are, does it make you drowsy, those kinds of things. So there are a lot of stipulations for those labels that they're requiring. Let's take a look at let's take a look at case 34.1 on page 640 in my book. 608, thank you, Vanessa. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to read this one and then we'll talk about it again. I'm sorry. I hope nobody has a bad belly because of this one.
That's just nasty.
Yes, it is. Yes, a rat patrol. Isn't it awesome?
That
So,
job would suck.
what was that?
That job would really suck.
So this is very disgusting. I know that, unfortunately, I know that this company is not the only one that has dealt with things like this, and it's pretty disgusting when you think about it. But that's why we have these regulatory agencies that are going out and checking and making sure. And if you walk into any food establishment, they have to have that inspection, and they've got like a grade on it. So you can actually see right away if they're in compliance with everything. And I don't know if they do it here, but I know in Las Vegas, when I lived in Las Vegas, I would watch the news at night before I'd go to bed, which was dumb. But anyway, I would watch the news, and I don't watch the news so much anymore, but they had a restaurant report in their newscast, and they would actually out those restaurants that weren't doing well. And so they're like, and they've been shut down, or they had a C, or they had a D, or whatever it was. And it was just like, some of the things that they were saying was just disgusting. And most of the time it was like, well, we tried to talk to the owner, but they wouldn't talk to us. Well, okay, yeah, I wonder why. But anyway, so I do know, and I don't know what the percentage is. Somebody might be able to look it up, but there is a percentage of your food that can be something other than that food. So there is a percentage of adulterated food that is allowable. I don't know what that is. I don't know if I want to know what that is, but yeah, there are things that can be in our food as long as it's not to a level that could make us sick, or worst case, kill us, you know? So in this case, do you think that LaGrue management knowingly engaged in improper storage of food products?
Yes.
Most likely. I mean, how would you not know, right?
Having
you
a rat patrol was kind of a given.
yeah, it's a little bit of a giveaway, right? If you've been assigned a rat patrol. Okay, so do you think that the penalties imposed on LaGrue were sufficient? So they ended up paying restitution of $8.2 million to customers, and pay a $2 million fine, and then a 5-year term of probation.
I think it would suffice.
Yeah. Oh, I think, they reduced the fine from 2 million to 1.5 million. So, I mean, that's quite a bit. That's a lot. And, you know, salmonella and E. coli are really can be very severe. And for some people, it really affects them. If your immune system is low, or if you have stomach issues or any of that, it's very possible.
Yeah, I almost died from E. coli one time.
Yeah, people have died from it. So yeah, it can be really bad. You can be hospitalized for a long period of time. You can die from it. Or you could just have a really bad case of, vomiting or diarrhea or something from it. And some people will have that and not even know what happened. I don't even know what I ate. And the only way they start tying it all together and figuring it all out is when multiple people go to the doctor's office, and then they have to kind of keep a log and see where cross-contamination could have happened and all that. So, and trace it back. So in 2010, an act was established that requires restaurants to disclose the calories of food items. I'm sure you guys remember the case that we talked about a while back ago about the teenager that sued McDonald's because she was not healthy after eating there every day. Do you remember that? So this act was established as a result of many cases, not just that case, but many cases like that. People were thinking that they're going to these places and they were getting some sort of healthy meal, when in all actuality, the sodium levels are high, it's not exactly the best food in the world. you're eating a lot of fried food, whatever it might be, and they weren't really educated on the nutritional value of those foods. And so this act was established because of that. And I don't know if you guys remember the Subway campaign that went on for quite a while, that eating their sandwiches every day could help you lose weight. Do you guys remember that? And they had Jared on there, who has recently, well, that's a whole long story. But anyway, they had Jared. He was their spokesperson during that time. And he would talk about how he ate at Subway all the time and he lost all this weight. And it may be true that if you go to Subway and you make good choices, you could lose weight. Most likely you would have to implement some sort of exercise program or something along with that, because just that alone may not make you lose weight. But it's not fully true, because if you go to Subway and you eat one of their most fatty sandwiches, then you're not going to lose weight. The highest in calorie you can find and all that, you're not going to lose weight. And if you're eating more than the calorie count that you need for your daily recommended calorie count too. So that, I mean, it became a big problem. So basically, their sandwiches may be better than some of the other foods that you could pick from a fast food standpoint, but only if you make good choices. I used to think, oh, the tuna sandwich, it's fish, it's okay, right? Okay, yeah, right. Because what do they put in those tuna sandwiches? They mix all that mayonnaise in it. Not exactly the best for you, right? So, so yeah. So there's a lot of things that go into that. So page in my book 642, there's the little box that says ethics, and it says restaurants required to disclose calories of food items. And it says, did you know that a Big Mac contains 540 calories? So a recommended amount of calories per day for the average person is 2,000. Okay. So if it's 540 calories just on that one Big Mac, you're taking up quite a bit of that allotment. A Domino's medium pepperoni pizza. Okay, I'm sorry. I like Domino's a lot. And I don't know about you guys. Some people will probably hate me right now, but I am a cheese pizza person. So my calories might be a little less than the pepperoni pizza, but 1660 if I ate that whole thing. So I guess I'm just not eating for the rest of the day. A hot fudge with Snickers sundae from Baskin Robbins. Ooh, that sounds yummy. 1,000 calories. So half of the calories for your daily allotment from just that one little dessert. A blueberry muffin from Starbucks has 450 calories. Those things are good. Have you guys ever had those from, I don't know what they do. They put some kind of craziness on them, but man, they're good. I like their blueberry muffins. A medium-sized bucket of popcorn at the movie theater is approximately 1,000 calories. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a huge put more butter on it kind of person. I kind of stay away from that. I've always been that way, but my kids love that butter. And not only the butter, but now they have those toppings. Like you can put those extra toppings on the popcorn. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you right now, that is just not good at all.
Yeah, I probably could eat only that for the day.
Yeah, exactly. So there's your bucket of popcorn. I'm not feeding you for the rest of the day. So Section 4205 of the Patient Protection and Affordable Healthcare Act of 2010 requires restaurants and retail food establishments with 20 or more locations to disclose calorie counts on their food items and supply information on how many calories a healthy person should eat in a day. The disclosures are required to be made on menus and on menu boards, including drive-through menu boards. The law also applies to vending machine operators with 20 or more vending machines. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't ever seen too many vending machines that have that on there. The law is administered by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, a federal government agency that is empowered to adopt rules and regulations to enforce the law. So why was this federal law enacted, do you think?
They probably got sued.
Well, most likely because of all of those cases, all these businesses were being sued because people thought that they were eating healthy and they weren't actually. But I think also because they realized that there was a real disconnect in education in the population, right? A lot of people thought that was healthy. So if the majority of people, or the majority of the people that we're hearing about, are feeling that that's healthy for you and you should be able to eat this food, then we need to get people educated and understand that that's not healthy. And the other thing is that a lot of those companies were actually promoting their food by saying, oh, well, if you eat this food, you will lose weight. If you drink a Diet Coke, you'll lose weight. Not necessarily, right? Especially not if you're eating a Snickers bar with that Diet Coke. It's a great combination, right? So anyway, so the public needed to be educated as well. So having that there, and I don't know about you guys, but if I go through a drive-through restaurant and I see, or whatever, if I go to a restaurant or whatever, and I look at the calories, I may switch my choice just based on that. And there's been a lot of times that I've had a little bit of an eye-opening experience. Like I said, I thought that the tuna at Subway was a good choice, because hey, it's tuna, but I learned that it's probably got almost double the calories as a turkey sandwich. So I just go with the turkey sandwich now. So it's kind of crazy. So do you think that the required disclosures will change consumer habits? Maybe. I mean, maybe, like I said, when I go to a drive-through or to a restaurant or something and I see the calorie count, maybe I'll reconsider, especially if I'm like, at lunch I had a cookie and I know that had some calories in it. And so, and I ate this, I ate a big breakfast and a big lunch. And so now I'm here at this restaurant and I'm looking at all these calories and I'm going, oh, 1,500 calories for that. Oh, well, maybe I'll just pick this little 200 calorie salad instead. So, I mean, maybe it's helping people. I don't know, but I hope the education is helping people. So the government regulates products that are potentially dangerous using several different federal agencies. This includes motor vehicles, boats, aircrafts, and firearms. We've all heard of these kinds of agencies that regulate them. The government regulates healthcare protection. So how many of you have heard of the Healthcare Reform Act of 2010? Probably quite a few of you, right? So this is an act that was put into place to help more people get covered by health insurance. The FTC Act that we discussed a little bit in the last chapter prohibits unfair and deceptive practices in their Section 5. So misinformation or unsubstantiated claims would be violations under this act. So if the example that they gave in the book was about KFC and how they had to withdraw their commercials that claimed that chicken was part of a healthy diet. Because people thought, oh, that means KFC chicken is part of a healthy diet. Okay, no one knows what's in that chicken. No one knows. It's a secret. I was actually just watching Foods That Made America. Have you guys seen that at all? My husband had it on and I was like, oh my gosh, they're talking about Kentucky Fried Chicken. So the sauce or the seasoning on that chicken, on the breading on that chicken, is a highly guarded secret. You know how we talked about franchises and how they would give their plants the recipe or whatever, and then the plants would distribute. Well, Kentucky Fried Chicken has two different plants. One distributes a certain amount of the seasoning and the other one does a certain amount of the seasoning. So nobody actually knows exactly what's in that secret recipe. It's insane how guarded it is. So pretty interesting. But so it's definitely, I mean, chicken is good for you, right? Somewhat, but if you're going to fry it up and put all this stuff on it, then it's not necessarily good for you anymore. So try it.
Now they have the air fryer.
Yeah. Yeah. The air fryer is awesome, right? And then you don't have
Yep.
to put all that junk on it. But so how many of you have received a call on your phone that was a telemarketer? Everybody, right? We've all had that annoying call. So telemarketing business was huge, just huge in the 1990s and early 2000s. I don't know if you guys know, a lot of the laws and regulations that have gone through since then have started to kind of push them out a little bit, because people got sick of being bothered. I mean, there used to be TV shows that they would, make fun of that telemarketer calling you, whatever. So people were getting upset and they're like, we don't want to have this happen anymore. They're calling us all the time. We don't have any peace. We can't use our phones for the regular reasons of using the phones. So
It's really annoying now because even if you opt out, you're not opt out. They just call from a different number.
So, and that's what I was just going to talk about. So in 2003, they did the do not call registry. And yeah, you're going to get people that don't, but you do have options. So I don't know how many of you are actually signed up on the do not call registry. Who doesn't know about the do not call registry? I'm going to show you guys real quick, maybe if I can do this right. So the do not call registry was set up. Oh, that's funny. That's too funny. It was set up so that so that people wouldn't call, so that these telemarketers would have to check that list and they'd have to make sure that they didn't have they weren't on the do not call list before they called. So if they were on the do not call list, they can be fined if they call you anyway. Sorry, I was trying to look this up. I guess I can't multitask anymore today. It's beyond me.
Well,
Okay.
I thought that you weren't able to do cell phones. Are you able to do cell phones with it now?
You can, yes, you can.